I couldn't really think of an intro for this. I just decided to show off one of my Grinch shirts. Um, so, uh, now I'm going to talk about Tot Musica. Um, as a lot of you, as any of you have watched the other ones that I've done about the, Uta's songs, breakdowns and stuff, I'm not talking about like how they score the music, although several of them have very good score setups in them, and this one has an extremely well done score in regards to like how they work it with the music, and of course, in the course of Film Red, because I keep talking about like where these songs take place in Film Red, because that's a big part of how they fit into the story and Uta's mental state. So this one will be going over Tot Musica, which is of course sung by Otto, and it was written with and composed with, I'm going to mispronounce this, I apologize, Hiroki Sawano. Again, I apologize for mispronouncing any of the Japanese names. And within the context of the movie and in the One Piece world, Tot Musica is this song, this very ancient song, that when sung by the person who has the Uta Uta no Mi, brings forth this giant, music devil king, demon king, whatever you want to put it as, brings this thing forth, and it feeds off of the singer's power, off of their stamina, until it either runs out of power, like what we see happen in the flashbacks, where we see Uta as a little girl, and everything happens there when she summoned it when she was a kid, and then it fed off of her energy until she passed out. And then we see it again near the end of the movie, during the climax of the movie, when the Straw Hats and the red-haired pirates and their various allies have to fight against Tot Musica at the end of it to save everybody. So there are a few quick things I wanted to point out about this. First of all, I just finished watching through Wednesday on Netflix, and I loved it. I thought they did an amazing job with it. Jenna Ortega did an amazing job as Wednesday, and I think pretty much most of the casting for like the Addams family themselves was spot on. But one of the things that I wanted to point out is I think Tot Musica seems like a song that Wednesday would appreciate quite a bit in regards to like A, the music video itself, B, the song itself, and C, just kind of what the song does in the context of the story. So I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out that a lot of the emotions that, of course, Uta is feeling at this point in time and that are being portrayed at this time through the way she is singing, but also just the way that the monster is going, is anger and rage and sorrow and suffering seem to be things that are embodied by this. The first part of this video is going to be me just talking about like the lyrics in the song and the images that we see within the music video itself, and kind of some of the things that happen throughout the course of the fight a little bit. And then at the end of it, I am going to talk about my theory about where I think Tot Musica came from. I'll possibly drift into that a little bit while I'm going through stuff, or you might see where I'm heading with it, but I'll try to save that for the end. The other thing I wanted to point out is, again, one of the things that we got with the original trailer for Film Red, or one of the original trailers for Film Red, where we just got some of the sketch art for it and stuff, we get the line about Uta that it's, will her voice bring forth eternal happiness or eternal imprisonment? And again, I focused on this when I talked about her devil fruit power itself. I think I possibly mentioned it in the video where I talked about her herself. And I think that line specifically is part about this song. And it's the juxtaposition of this song and New Genesis, and then like the ending songs. And the last two songs that I will be talking about, but that'll be, I think I'm going to save those to go up on New Year's Eve, possibly, when I talk about that, are going to be The World's Continuation and Where the Wind Blows, because I think those are actually rather appropriate for me to talk about on New Year's Eve. So I'll save that for then. But yes, I wanted to point out the whole thing about part of this is, yes, eternal happiness is what she was trying to give everybody. Eternal imprisonment, endless imprisonment is kind of where it ended up in regards to how she was keeping everybody in the song world. So, going into the lyrics slash things that are in the music video. So the first part is, of course, the runic text that I tried finding a translation for it, for what it like translates to. I could find it where it's like where you get like the automatopoeia setup of how it goes for like how you would pronounce it in English, but it did not tell me what it said, which I'm like, okay. I tried multiple different websites. I tried to find it. I'm sure someone out there maybe has found the exact translation of it, but I couldn't find it. If someone actually knows what the exact translation of all the different runic things in this are, if you know what they are, please comment them. And if you can cite your source, that would be helpful too, just because then I can be like, okay, I know where that came from now. But yeah, I tried finding translations for it. I could not find it for any of the stuff in this. And I saw in the comments of other things, do you know what this means? It's from Film Red, and I can't find a translation of it. I'm like, welcome to the club. So yeah, there's that. And then we just go into the lyrics itself. Now there's several different movements that happen in this, and there's different parts of the song that bring forth different aspects of the Demon King. And I'll go into that after I'm finished with the lyrics. But it's kind of like each stanza that she hits that has like the runic stuff in it seems to make the Demon King get stronger every time she sings it. It's kind of where that kind of seems to stem from. So yeah, one of the things, of course, that is very evident in this music video is, of course, Uta has these big black wings that very much look like Lunarian wings that we've seen King have throughout Wano and such. And, you know, so that's very evident there. And that does tie into my theory that I'll go into at the end. She has the huge Lunarian wings. And, you know, it's let these words of a curse be my deliverance. You know, I kind of see that Tot Musica was this curse that was put on the celestial dragons, and that I'll go into in my theory when I get to the end. But yes, the song itself, the lyrics in the song, it's whenever I listen to it, when I listen to it and I watch, you know, reading the English translations at the bottom, when I'm listening to the English version that was done by AmaLee, links in the description for both of the music videos. Anytime I'm reading those lyrics, the lyrics themselves actually seem like they seem like a hopeful song, but there's the twist of the fact that like all the music is more, I don't want to say depressing, but more on the darker side of things. So I kind of wanted to point that out, and I'm sure a lot of other people have noticed that as well. But that was particularly something that resonated with me. And then we have more of the runic lyrics that I can't translate. And then we have these ancient words like a hymn of reclamation. Not even death will escape them. I wanted to point out that one of the things that kind of popped into my head when I was thinking about those lyrics and like how that's set up is hymns, spirituals, and stuff like that that throughout history have been sung and passed down through generations of slavery. No different than what happened in the American South. There are lots of, you know, not just in the American South, but in America as a whole, you know, things that happened with that there were, you know, the spiritual hymns and stuff like that the slaves would sing, and pass down and such. And I just kind of like that kind of popped into my head because, of course, one of the big things in One Piece is slavery. And we've seen a lot of that a little bit more evident in regards to things at Marie Joie and in the Pangaea Castle and stuff like that. So I wanted to definitely point that out because that's a big thing of what happens with my theory. And then we have, you know, how to center these troubled thoughts, I pray. Can the future bring calm to the sea, I beg. One of the things that they do mention in the movie is that Tot Musica, as in like the song itself, was written long ago. I think they state in like ancient times, but we never get like an exact answer for this, for when that was. Was this pre-Void Century? Was this during the Void Century? Was this after the Void Century? We don't know. It's never stated. It's just stated that the music devil was trapped inside of this song by a previous user of the Uta Uta no Mi. And that's why only a user of the Uta Uta no Mi can actually resurrect the demon, song demon. But there's not really too much else that goes with that or that's explained in that regard. We see the sheet music and it looks very old. Other people have pointed out, I think it was Artor at the Library of Ohar that pointed out that like at the top of the music seemed to be like a symbol that was similar to Doflamingo's Jolly Roger, like the smile symbol that he had. So I'm not sure about that. And I've only seen the movie once, and it was a little while ago by the time I'm doing these. But yeah, so yeah, I kind of see like can the future bring calm to the sea? The song itself was clearly written at a time, or the lyrics of the song itself were clearly written at a time when the author was at a very dark spot. And if they're trying to seal away this giant demon king, then yeah, that would be true. And, I kind of went to, Future Hope, Toki's Prophecy, Roger's Dream, things like that was kind of things popping into my head. Yes, a lot of the songs end up involving me thinking about Toki's Prophecy, but a lot of the songs mention things about like, a new dawn and a new era and things like that. So, it's time for salvation to finally come. I feel this rage and I'm feeling it strong. And during these parts, whenever you see Uta singing at these points in times, she just looks so freaking angry and like she's ready to kill someone. And yeah, no, I can agree with her there, considering how much pain she's already been through in regards to, ups and downs with her emotions and everything like that, with stuff with Shanks and with Gordon and with stuff with the Marines and with all of her fans and the fact that she's strung out on the mushrooms and everything. So yeah. This weeping and wailing has gone for too long. Nothing left but to yell. Yeah. Again, don't have to worry about me actually singing the lyrics. 800 years of oppression and, complete and utter subjugation in various places by the Celestial Dragons, by the Gorosei, by Im Sama, depending on how long Im Sama has been around, probably a very long time, or at least the position has been around for a very long time. We, all of that stuff that's happened, all of the oppression, the slavery, the, government the tributes and everything like that, all of that has been going on for like 800 years or so. I mean, around 800 years, I don't necessarily know if the initial 19 families that went to Marigeois, I don't know if they like completely 100% right away started out with like the holy tribute right away, or if it ended up being, maybe like the next generation or something like that. It was like, well, we need to be able to keep our upkeep and everything like that of this area. So we need to have a lot of money coming in so we can make it big and beautiful in a city worthy of, people who, are descendants of gods that they're trying to portray. And then like it just perpetuated it down the line. I know you can feel it too, so keep on singing this song. Even when they abuse us, we'll keep singing along. And, this is where I gotta bring in Nika. I'm sorry, I gotta. The story of Nika being passed down from one generation of slaves to the next, because from Who's Who we did learn that when he became a slave, when he was forced into that after he lost the Come no Mi, a lot of irony there, he lost the fruit of this god, and then he's put into slavery where he then learns about said god with having no idea what the devil fruit actually was. So there's a lot of irony in that. And I don't think Who's ever going to get to put 2 and 2 together. But the Nika, the story of Nika, this liberation god, this sun god, this god of freedom, was passed down through so many generations of slaves. And as I mentioned in, I think, some of the other videos, there's a good chance that Hancock and her sisters may have been aware of Nika, that Fisher Tiger may have been aware of Nika. It's just not necessarily something that they told anybody else about, because Fisher Tiger, up until he died, he never told anyone that he'd been a slave, barring Otohime and Neptune. I think he told them, but like he never told Jinbei or Arlong or any of the other ones that were on the Sun Pirates. And then with the Hancock, with the Boa sisters, you know, maybe they may have told something to like Granny Neon and to possibly Rayleigh and Shockey, since they, kind of helped, help them get back on their feet and get, healed up and everything and a little more mentally stable, and help them come up with the backstory for like where they'd been for the past several years while they'd been slaves, before they went back to, Amazon Lily and stuff. So I can kind of think that they probably knew about Nika. Koala might know about Nika. She'd been a slave for for several years when she was a child, so there's the possibility that she knows. But again, we don't know. That might just be something that she's never brought up, or maybe she has told Dragon about it, and Sabo and Hack and stuff. We just don't know. I don't know. That's a possibility. But I did want to point that out. We'll start another big bang when we all sing as one. United, we're fighting, bringing them down with our song of ruin. Image that just popped into my head that I hadn't thought of was the walls of Jericho tumbling down when Joshua led the Hebrews and, toppled the walls by singing and, well, not singing, but playing a trumpet, and it fell. That kind of popped into my head. What can I say? Slightly biblically minded a little bit in certain cases. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. But one of the other things is, this new Big Bang, this new beginning, will hopefully be like bring about the end of the celestial dragons. As I believe Dragon himself has stated, he doesn't want to destroy the concept of the world government, because he does think the concept of these different countries working together, and to a degree the initial concept of like what the Marines do with like, tracking down bad pirates and other criminals and stuff like that kind of stuff, Dragon is okay with. And even like Luffy and his crew know that there are certain people that definitely deserve to be in jail. There are certain pirates and other bad guys that definitely deserve to be in prison. But Luffy might be a little bit more iffy on that one. But the other Straw Hats are like, there are certain people that should be in prison regardless of what they've done, because they're horrible. But, they want to bring down the Tenryubito, the Celestial Dragons, the Gorosei. They want to bring down that whole concept of, these humans that are just nothing but pompous windbags that get anything that they want simply because, my ancestor helped settle the world government, so therefore I am of god blood. Just like, the whole destroying the Red Line theory of just like, toppling Marie Joie and Pangea Castle and everything, and just it falling into the sea when they destroy the Red Line and Fishman Island along with it. But hopefully they'll all be gone and safe on the Noah and on the surface and everything, so we can get this new beginning of hopefully allowing the world to not be as divided as it is. And then we just have more of the runic texts, and then just like Uta with like all of these weird blank faces just like floating around her and surrounding her. Weird blank face heads just floating around her, which is disturbing, but that's the point. We will rejoice when we get the freedom promised, the freedom so many died for. Liberation, like after Wano when they toppled Orochi and Kaido and everything. This huge celebration that happened. It was like a week, this like week-long almost celebration, and this huge celebration once all the Straw Hats were awake and everything. Like all of that celebration that happened, that was, this huge rejoicing, this whole concept that one of Luffy's dreams, like the other part of his dream after becoming the Pirate King, was like to be the freest man in the world. And, he wants to throw this, like, huge party and everything, which is kind of, an antithesis given the fact that he doesn't want to share his meat with people. So, but still, this huge, this concept that Luffy just wants to throw a huge party, or that Luffy, wants to just have everybody in the world be as free as possible, goes into that. And then, of course, the freedom so many died for. the slaves that have passed, past revolutionaries that have like come and gone, because there has most definitely been other revolutionary armies that have popped up beyond dragons over the past 800 years. There have to have been, and I'm sure a lot of those islands where they were, if they found their headquarters, I'm sure a lot of those islands were Buster called, or the giant sky laser thing that we saw that happened to Lelucia. You know, all of that stuff. All these other places that have been Buster called, what happened on O'Hara, what, happened to Ennis Lobby with them trying to get rid of the Straw Hats, with the fact that I think they threatened to do a Buster call on some other island at some point in time. And I'm not talking about Stampede, but like other islands that have been Buster called over the years that just don't exist anymore, and stuff. The cleansings that the Gorosei talked about in the past. Just like, oh, we might have to do another cleansing soon. Just like all these other things that have happened, that are just all this blood that's on the world, specifically on the Tenryubito's hands, not necessarily entirely on the hands of like the other world government people, as in like the other countries, not necessarily blood on their hands, but blood on the hands of other vice admirals and stuff like that, like Aka Inu, who does not care that like he blew up an entire ship of civilians just because there could have been one archaeologist on it, with what we see that happens in O'Hara in the flashback. We get all of that. When there's nowhere to run, we must find hope. And we get this antithesis of, this dichotomy in it that, this evil looking shadow thing, this very dark image, this false king looking, that could be, because like all we've seen of Yim-sama so far is like this shadowy figure and, with a crown. And then like we've seen a close up of his eye, but that's it. And, this shadowy figure that we see that's like reaching out to Uta and everything. There's a double meaning here, I'm sure, between this darkness that's inside of you that's trying to envelop you, and that you have to find hope even through this darkness and everything. And we see some other images of that throughout the course of these lyrics. But also just, this false king that's sitting on top of the world, that may have been ruling for 800 years, or may have passed it down for 800 years to like their, father to son, to daughter to whatever, depending on stuff. It would be nice if Yim-sama was a woman, just to give the Straw Hats someone else to fight who's actually, a little bit more of that kind, a little bit more in that case, because so many of the bad guys that they fought so far have been men. But kind of go against like the antithesis of like what Ota, like why Oda had Uta be the antagonist for Film Red. So like a little bit of like a twist there would be nice. And then we have, left forgotten within the light, it glows. I wanted to point out the quote unquote, the radiance, air quotes, of the celestial dragons, of the fact that they are these, this pinnacle of, the highest ranking things in the world, humans in the world and stuff like that, even though they think they're gods. Well, the majority of the Tenryubito think they're gods. The Gorosei, I'm pretty sure, are well aware of the fact that they are not gods, but they will continue to sustain this position because it gives them power. And this radiance that, most of the celestial dragons are like, oh, the world owes us for what our ancestors did, and therefore that's why we get to do anything that we want. Charlos is very evident of this in the movie itself, where we see him appear, then Uta dispatches him and calls him out on his BS and everything. And there it glows, this hope coming from the darkness. And I did want to bring up the image of the celestial dragons, the hoof of the dragon that's on this, that's burned into the skin of the slaves and stuff, and then that getting covered up by the sun mark that Fisher Tiger designed. And we've seen other people cover up their same marks in similar ways in Film Gold. And I think I mentioned this when I talked about Gil Tesoro and Stella back when I did the couples videos. But for Gil Tesoro, it was he'd become a slave. He was made a slave because he tried to oppose a celestial dragon. And then he ends up getting, he becomes a slave, and then when he escapes because of what happens with Fisher Tiger, he escapes, and then as a way of covering up, because he is branded, he, has this giant star burned into his back. So, there's this other representations there of like other people covering up these marks and stuff like that. So there's that, of these marks being, you know, covered up to hide what they've been through. We know that Koalas is covered up. We know that a lot of the other fishermen who had been slaves that were part of the Sun Pirates got the tattoos to cover them up, but so did Jinbei and Arlong and Hachi, and so several of the others who had not been slaves, but they did it in solidarity for the ones who had been slaves. So there's that. And such, the Fisher Tiger did that to Koala to help her start healing and everything. Even though he said he could never care for a human, I think he did care for Koala. And as I mentioned, he's the closest thing to a father that she probably remembers. And then we move into some of the last two-ish verses. Keep making this music till you breathe your last. And we get this image of like Uta just sinking into the despair of all of these different, all the different, blanked faces and everything, just like sinking into that and just looking like dead in her eyes and everything. But, we dream but never lose sight of the past. And I wanted to throw in the Will of D because, of course, a lot of people think the D could stand for dream or dawn or destiny or whatever. I don't have a particular one for what I think the D stands for. I'm assuming at some point in time we'll probably find out. But I wanted to throw that in there because, there's the D is also this thing that has been passed down from generation to generation through many different families in regards to Roxy Zebek and Goldie Roger and Porcus D Rouge. And Law's family and through Luffy's family and such, and Saul's family, and such, and like the will of D and everything that's been passed down, all of that. Illuminate, we dream but never lose sight of our past, illuminate hope and forget all the rest, nothing left but to yell. Again, just this call to fight back and everything. And then we get to, it's time for salvation to finally come. I feel this rage and I'm feeling it strong. And it's, parts of this verse are used above, but this one has different imagery in the song. And it's just like, Uta just looks like, she looks psycho during this verse and everything, which is just as much as she looks like she's screaming at the top of her lungs and everything, to the point where her throat will just be like nothing but raw and in so much pain by the time she's done singing this song. And the faces just get burning away to just reveal these skulls that are on fire, and like I think her wings get bigger and everything when we see this. And then, this weeping and wailing has gone for too long. And this is when, the music demon king, starts reaching out of the darkness and, and starts to appear and take form and everything. And starts appearing more and more in the background, and just seeing Uta yelling and screaming even more as the song goes on. And then there's united we're fighting, bringing them down with our song of ruin. And we get this flash in the song where we see like this little Uta that's just like crying, and like it's clearly supposed to be the little Uta crying for when Shanks left, for when he left her, for when she thought he abandoned her, and such. And then I think that's a slight callback to I think it's Backlight, when we get this other image of like this little Uta and the older Uta together, I believe. But then we have the last bit that's just the text again that I cannot find the translation for, and we see the demon music king in full view and everything, and just looking super evil and super messed up. And then we see just like this, the last bits are Uta singing, and it's just like she just looks broken as she's singing this song. as she's finishing up the song. And yeah, I mean, the music video, the song in the theater when you're listening to it the first time is amazing. The music video is amazing. The just listening to it in the background, the lyrics and just like the chords and everything that go into it are amazingly done. All of the music videos are extremely well done and everything, and so beautiful in their own different ways and everything. Which is just great to watch and everything because they're so different. But just like you see, this music video, the music video itself kind of portrays like where Uta's headspace is at this point in time in the movie, and I'm going to go into that. So, as I mentioned, Tot Musica is this monstrous being known as the Demon King of Songs or the King of Music, depending on which way you want to put it. And it's said that at some point in time in the past, a previous user of the Utanomi trapped it away inside of this sheet music and everything, and the only way it can be brought back is if the owner of the fruit sings the music. We do see in the movie that it does seem to be that the music has some form of sentience, because when Shanks had Uta on Elysia, that night the music found its way out and found it to her, and she sang it when she was a child, and that of course caused a lot of the destruction and everything that happened, and that Shanks and the red-haired pirate took the blame for and everything to not have Uta be the one that was punished for it, have Uta or Gordon be the ones that were punished for it. Again, things could have been handled better from Shanks's part. That is extremely true, and so many people agree with that. That could have been handled so much better. But then, of course, we know that Uta ends up finding it because she has no memory that she was the one that sang it until about a year before she's going to do her concert. And she ends up finding this other Dendenmushi that tells her that, that plays it from that night, why there's a Dendenmushi that was recording that night and hasn't been found yet already. Because I mentioned Uta's probably wandered around this island a lot over the last, 11 years or whatever. When she finds it, and she, of course, sees that she's the one that sang the song and summoned Tot Musica and caused all the damage, and that Shanks and the others left to protect her and such. And then, that's how she knows about Tot Musica, and of course we know that she has Tot Musica with her throughout the course of her concert and everything. She has the sheet music with her, so that way if she ends up needing to, she can sing the song, and she kind of uses it as like a Hail Mary measure. She tells Gordon that she has it and that she can use it. And Tot Musica, the way that it translates to, it goes from German, or is part of where it comes from, that can mean a song of death, but it also means all music in Catalan. So again, Oda can, it was like playing off of that and how it's done and everything. Again, I'm very certain that Oda had a fair amount of say and control over what was going to be used in this song and such. Considering how much he was involved in Film Red's, story and everything, that he was definitely involved in a lot of this. Things about Tot Musica, there are different movements that happen within Tot Musica. There's like different, movements that are like in a symphony and stuff like that. Last night we went to a concert for my younger niece for her high school because she's in the choir and such, and we stayed through the concert. And lots of other, they had like the symphonic orchestra and the Philharmonic Orchestra setup that they did, so we listened to those too. The different movements that come along with that. And the first movement is what initially shows up. One of the things, the context of the movie, at the point in the movie when this happens, is Shanks and the others have shown up, and he's tried to talk Uta out of what she's doing, and Uta is being confronted by Luffy and the others in the song world, and she just snaps, and she starts singing Tot Musica, and it just, it envelops her, and everything, and it's this initial version of it that is just it's still a very still a threatening thing that you have to deal with, because you have to fight it from both sides, because you have to fight it both from the real world and the song world, and you have to hit the same point at the same time, which is of course how they end up beating it in the end. But there's the first movement, and then there is the second movement, and then there is the third movement, and each movement gets progressively stronger and stronger. And I'm sure that the movements are also implied to be feeding off of the power that Uta is giving off. Now, admittedly, at this point in time, Uta's been using her power already for several hours, and she's already strung out on the mushrooms a fair amount. So she doesn't have like a huge amount of time left before the mushrooms kind of take her anyway. But she's like, I'm going to cause as much destruction as I can in the process, to a degree as well. Again, the mushrooms affect her state of mind, which I'll go by. I'll agree with there. And I think the song, to a degree itself, can also affect your state of mind, or at least somewhat influence your state of mind. It doesn't mean like it's going to take away Uta's free will, but I think that it's making her focus more on all of the bad things that have happened. The fact that Shanks left her, the fact that now Luffy is fighting her, even though Luffy never actually lands a hit on Uta herself. He can never bring himself to actually hit Uta. Because he knows that she's not in her right mind when she's doing this. This is not quite the same girl that he grew up with on Fuchsia Village. And then there's like the full-on Demon King one that they have at the end that they have to fight. That's, all the different, the red-haired pirates pairing up with each of the Straw Hat pirates and such, dealing with it. And then Shanks and Luffy are the ones that land the final blows on it. To completely destroy it. Now, as I've seen other people point out, we do not know exactly if Tot Musica, if the music itself can be destroyed. Gordon stated that he knew that he should have destroyed it, but as a lover of music, he couldn't bring himself to do it. That's a jip. That's an easy fix. It's called, you take a lighter or a match and you burn it, or you shred it and then you burn it. Now, whether or not the thing will actually stay burned, or if it will like reform, is left up for debate. If they had done that, where Gordon had stated, it's like if we actually see Gordon destroying it in the flashback, and then like if it reforms at some point in time down the line, like after Gordon's walked away, it reforms, and then like it goes and hides itself or something like that, or it reforms and Gordon's watching and he like locks it up far more secure than it had been, then that would have been better, but that didn't happen. And we know that Uta, of course, gets her hands on it, and that's where everything else goes. And this is where I'm going to talk about where my theory for where I think Tot Musica comes from. So they said that, in the movie with like, Robin reads, the history of the island and everything like that, when they're down having to fight against like the giant instrument golems, which are actually pretty cool looking. Robin's reading through like the history of the island and everything, and she's like, well, it seems that Tot Musica had been this giant demon king that got, as I said, got sealed away by a previous user of the Uta no Mi. My thought is that that Tot Musica, yes, was designed to like seal this thing away, was part of it, but my other thought, or my other kind of line of thinking that goes with that, is that a previous user of it had been a slave of the world nobles, maybe several hundred years back, maybe within the first couple of generations of the establishment of the world government, but definitely they had slaves by that point in time. To build Marie Joie and Pangea Castle and Impel Down and a lot of these other places, they had the slave labor. That's what they used it for. Probably a lot of people who had been defeated and captured, prisoners of war and stuff like that during the war with the Great Kingdom. Probably people in those situations. And they may have found someone who may have been an amazingly good singer. And they're like, oh, we'll give her, or we'll give this singer this devil fruit, and then they can entertain us by singing. And we see that. And my concept is like they did that, or either like they had the devil fruit, they didn't tell anyone that they had the devil fruit in certain cases. And, or it may have been a previous version of like a revolutionary army that, a previous user of the devil fruit may have been a member of like a previous revolutionary army, again, several hundred years ago. And they may have thought that a way that we can defeat the world government is by using my devil fruit. And maybe they tried to pull off a similar thing to what Uta did, where maybe not like have as worldwide of a concert, but like trick the celestial dragons into doing a concert where like they sing and then they bring all of them into the music world, and then they have their allies come in and like capture all of them. And it didn't work, unfortunately, but I kind of also see that someone had written Tot Musica, maybe not even connected to the devil fruit to begin with, but had written Tot Musica as like, like this curse that will bring, what was the phrasing? Curse that will bring, wasn't salvation, this curse that will bring deliverance. Let this curse be my deliverance, this hymn of reclamation. That was this song that was written, and it may have been in connection to Nika. Maybe not entirely in connection to Nika, because I was kind of I had like a theory at one point in time that like, well, maybe it had been written in regards to like some parts of it were like a prayer to Nika, and then it got twisted and morphed into this song, because it's not stated which parts of the song are actually what are needed to summon the demon. Is it like just like the runic text that has to be sung, or is it the like the actual whole verses? Because like, since I can't find a translation for what the runic text is saying, I don't know if that's just saying like, I don't know, bring forth the giant evil music king and let it destroy everything because reasons. Because like, as I said, a lot of the rest of the song, some parts of it sound like hopeful or uplifting, even with the dichotomy of it being sung, with such, melancholy tunes in certain cases, melancholy music, or angry sounding music at different points. But yeah, my thought is that there had been, a previous user of the fruit, and either they wrote this song and it didn't end up doing what they wanted it to do. It ended up summoning this demon king instead of maybe summoning Nika or summoning something that could help them. And it feeds off of the negative human's emotions. Or it may have been someone else, we don't know. And like, since there's not really been any other evidence of like a demon king in like the actual like story. I mean, I know Vegapunk mentioned stuff about like, Mother Nature, like how nature despises devil fruit users and stuff like that because it goes against them. But, Vegapunk also said that, everything that we have is like built by hope. And I'm not saying that Tot Musica was created in a lab, but, the devil fruit itself may have been created in a lab or some variation of it, depending on how Oda wants to, spin that. But the devil fruit, just like all the other devil fruits, came from somewhere. And it initially looks like it can be used to help people escape their problems for a little while, and then you send them back. I think it's the main purpose of it. You give people a break. You let them go to this world where they can have what they need. And they can rest, they can celebrate, and then you can send them back. And a thought popped into my head. If it had belonged to a slave, it may have been that the slave had decided that, well, like maybe their plan failed and it's not going to work. We can't stop the celestial dragons right now. So I will pray for, the future to bring calm to the sea, for salvation to come at some point in time. And, the celestial dragons may have just had Tot Musica locked up so it could be used against them. Obviously, at some point in time, Uta, as I said, got her hands on the Uta no Mi, but we don't know when that was. It was at some point in time when she was a child, obviously, but we don't know exactly when. And I had the thought, or had the image in my head of a slave in the past having had this devil fruit, and as a way of helping the other slaves, maybe they ended up pulling something similar to what Uta did, or it's just like at some point in time when there was a lot of slaves, maybe what they did was they sang and they helped all the slaves just go into this world, and then they kept them there because it was like the slaves were just like, just take us into the music world and just let us stay there and such. And one of the former users of the devil fruit may have just allowed themselves to die so the others could actually pass on with like so much less pain than what they were already in, as slaves in that regard. Somewhat of a suicide pact in that regard, but that's not a good thing. But just like something along those lines is what popped into my head, is one of the images that popped into my head. A lot of images popped into my head while I was, I've been listening to these songs for several weeks now while I'm getting everything ready for these and everything, so I can, have all these thoughts ready. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. The one, as I said, the one for the world's continuation and Where the Wind Blows, I think I will plan on having that one up on New Year's Eve. I will still have a couple of videos that come out the week of Christmas, the week of New Year's Eve. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and happy holidays. Bye.